Yo, what is good, everybody? It's KJ, and I'm back, and I am actually here to talk about something, and obviously you can see it on the screen, something very, very interesting. I don't know if y'all heard about the IGN Top 25 Best RPGs of All Time list, but I think there were some choices. So I decided, you know what? Let's do our own list, which I'm super excited about. I expect to get absolutely torn apart for this list, but it's okay because this is my list and I don't care what other people think about my list because this is how I feel. Again, I want to just set the ground rules. So the ground rules were that they could only choose one game from each franchise. And so that's why you don't see duplicates of, say, like Final Fantasy 7, 10, 6, whatever. You don't see multiple Xenoblade Chronicles games. You don't see multiple Dragon Quest games. You don't see multiple Pokemon games. You don't see any of that. There's no duplicates of any kind. So that's sort of the general ground rules of the list. The way I'm going to do my list is going to be just like games that I found to be like purely the most enjoyable and the most like well put together from a story aspect, from like a game progression aspect, and from like character development, character growth, and combat gameplay. So those are kind of the things that I'm basing my ideas off of. I am not going to, and I repeat this because I know there are going to be people that are like, Final Fantasy 7 isn't on your list. Surprise, surprise. I don't care about how impactful something necessarily was. Like, sure, if something's impactful, like, cool. That's an added bonus. This is not the most impactful RPGs, because if it was the most impactful RPGs list, Final Fantasy 7 would be here. It's not, so I'm just giving y'all that heads up right now. Another thing that I want to make sure is very clear, I did include tactics games. You look up and down this list, and from 1 to 25 on IGN's list, no tactics games are included. I don't think that that's necessarily okay, because there are tactical RPGs that are JRPGs. So I went ahead and threw those in, and I'll just go out and say, y'all know I don't really care for the term JRPG because the lines are blurred, it's very vague. Like, you know, I would rather say like turn-based RPG, tactical RPG, but whatever. I've been rambling enough, we're gonna jump into it. So, number 25, IGN had SMT3 Nocturne. I disagreed with that even being included on the list. I'm not a big SMT fan. I haven't played Nocturne. I did watch a long playthrough of Nocturne. SMT, not really for me. Instead, at number 25, I had Tactics Ogre. Specifically, I'm going to say Reborn, although Let Us Cling Together is the sort of like initial. Fantastic game. I know there was a lot of sort of overlap between Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre, and I think where Tactics Ogre really ended up shining was the fact that I really thought that the story was absolutely fantastic. I think in terms of story with Final Fantasy Tactics, I actually think Tactics Ogre edges it out just a little bit, whereas obviously Final Fantasy Tactics has better sort of like class system and stuff like that. But anyway, I think Tactics Ogre deserves to be on this list. I think it's a fantastic game. I think it's kind of a must play, especially the remake that came out. But that said, I want to say like 23 to 25 is sort of like a toss up and can just kind of be, I don't know, it's going to be very different on different people's lists, right? So the next game is something that I recently played, and it took a while for me to actually get through it. I bounced off of it a few times, and that is going to be Dragon Quest XI. So Dragon Quest XI for me is not number 6 like it is on the IGN list, but instead number 24, replacing Breath of Fire 3. And Dragon Quest XI, I think, is a fantastic game. I think it's very different from a lot of the other Dragon Quest games that I've seen. It's the only Dragon Quest game I've played, but it's very different than the other Dragon Quest games in the sense that has a very, very, very good story, which I've heard. And like, I don't know, I've seen some of the other games, and I think probably the toss-up, if I was sort of like more into Dragon Quest games, would probably be between Dragon Quest 8 and 11. But just from everything that I've seen and heard, like 11 is much more sort of, a lot of the things in 11 are much more streamlined, and the story is a bit stronger. I know that there are ties to sort of other games, and in some of the other Dragon Quest games, it's kind of like a lot harder to, like, you have to kind of do a little bit more digging for some of the story. But absolutely loved this game. It was really good. After, again, it took me 3 times, but I did get through it, and I loved it. That said, was not a big fan of sort of like the mid-game credits type thing. That is definitely something that I was not the biggest fan of, and I did end up looking up the sort of Act 3, because once the credits roll, I'm good. But anyway, let's get into number 23. So number 23 is going to be a representative from the Tales franchise, and I think it is the best Tales game that I've played to this point, and that is Tales of the Abyss. I did play the 3DS version. I felt like it was made for that console, honestly. Like, I really enjoyed playing it on the 3DS. I know a lot of people swear by the PS2 version, but honestly, I think that this is just a fantastic game. The character cast is phenomenal. I really love the sort of Tales combat system, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, what about Symphonia? I think Symphonia is the Final Fantasy VII of the Tales franchise. It modernized it, especially like here over in sort of North America. I really think that Tales of the Abyss just like outpaces it in every way, shape, and form. Same thing with Abyss versus things like Vesperia. I just think Abyss is the best game. So next is going to be Radiant Story of Perfect Chronology for me at 22 over Ni no Kuni. I have not played Ni no Kuni. I have zero interest in playing Ni no Kuni. I know that's going to upset some people, but it is what it is. And so this is one of the first kind of like one-offs that I have. Radiant Story of Perfect Chronology, I think, does time travel in games better than anything that I've seen. And that's high praise considering there is another game that does time travel very, very well. Radiant Historia was an absolute gem. I think that game is a incredibly well put together game. I think that the combat is refreshing. I think the combat is also difficult and sort of fun to learn and figure out how to kind of move forward. Everything about that game really, really, really just like checked all the boxes. It is a phenomenal game, and I think everybody needs to play it. So I know that Lost Odyssey was number 21 for IGN, and that is a game that I love, but it's not what is in number 21 slot for me. Number 21 slot for me is going to be Skies of Arcadia. Very good game. Very, very good game. But having replayed it on the GameCube with the newer version that they ended up coming out with a couple years later, I actually thought that sort of like put a perfect bow tie on it. They fixed a lot of the problems, and that's why it's on the list. Like, they fixed a lot of the problems with it. It's one of those games that I think is going to be left off of a lot of people's lists because it's like more of a cult classic, but I think it's a game that everybody needs to play. Like, it is a very good game. It has everything that you want. It's just a nice adventure, you know? Like, I really thought that it was a lot of just really, really, really great time. It was a lot of fun, and it's something that I couldn't leave off this list, you know? So number 20 for IGN is Star Ocean Second Story. Number 20 for me is a game that they actually had a bit lower, and that is actually my favorite RPG of all time, and that is Golden Sun. So I put Golden Sun at number 20. I think that Golden Sun is definitely a very good game. A lot of people like the Lost Age better, but Golden Sun is definitely just one of those games that I can just turn it on and just play. Like, it is that this is probably the one sort of like really nostalgic pick for me. This was one of the first RPGs that I ever played. I believe it was the first RPG that I actually finished, like got to end credits by myself. And I really, really enjoy the game. I still have my childhood copy. You can see it in the case behind me. I really, really, really love that game. So Golden Sun, and I think it doesn't do anything like super crazy, but I think the way that they have like the Jin and the job system, it just all gels together really well. I really enjoy. The one knock on Golden Sun, in my opinion, is that it kind of leaves off on a cliffhanger because Golden Sun 1 and 2 were kind of supposed to be one game. So in some cases, I can understand too if people kind of say Golden Sun and Golden Sun The Lost Age are kind of like one game and kind of like blend those together. I'd be okay with that too. Okay, so next is actually the game that IGN had in the number 20 slot, and that's Star Ocean Second Story. Now, I played the OG Star Ocean Second Story, and I had some serious problems with it, but I think all is fixed with the remake of the game. Second Story R, I think they did an incredible job with that. I've not played it yet myself, but I've watched multiple playthroughs of it, and honestly, like, if I had to choose like just the original game, it would probably be a little bit lower on the list, probably in like the 23, 24, 25 slot. But seeing the sort of remastered and remade version of it, it's incredible. Like, they did a lot to streamline all of my problems with the original game. So big shout outs to them. Like, that game is very good. If you haven't played it, definitely go play it. Next is my number 18, and that is going to be Grandia 2. Now, this is number 15 on the IGN list. This is a game that I played fairly recently, and I originally would have put Grandia 1 on this list, probably in the same slot, maybe a little bit lower, but honestly, Grandia 2 from the start just like blew me away. And this is a game I feel like needs to get played more. I've been talking in a lot of RPG circles, and it seems like people it just kind of, I don't want to say disrespect Grandia 2, but like, I feel like Grandia 2 is not getting the love it deserves, and it deserves love. Like, the game is fantastic. My only knock on the game is like the ending sequence, and that it's a bit easy, especially if you know what you're doing in the game, or you can kind of like luck into some stuff. But yeah, Grandia 2 was fantastic. Like, I think the Grandia combat system just kind of like really takes a interesting twist on the sort of like active time battle mechanics of a turn-based combat system, and then with the like cancel mechanics and stuff, I really enjoyed Grandia 2. It was a great time. Okay, next we have some recency bias here, and I say recency bias, but honestly, I'm not thinking about it in terms of like, this game hasn't like earned its stripes, it hasn't been out too long, so like it can't be on this list. If a game absolutely blows me away, like, it can make this list, and that's kind of how I feel. Now, that said, y'all know I'm not a big Persona fan, and y'all know that I already mentioned I'm not a big SMT fan. And so if you want to count this as sort of like the representative for those and kind of like lump all this in together, I'm totally okay with that. But number 17 for me is Metaphor ReFantazio. And honestly, Metaphor, I was shocked. I wasn't going to get it necessarily. I did play the demo, and it really is like high fantasy Persona minus the sort of school mechanics, which is something that I criticize a lot of games for, is the school mechanics. I don't really like that. But honestly, it takes the press turn system of the Persona and SMT games, works in like a weather system. There's obviously the calendar based stuff, which like I could take it or leave it, but the story was fantastic. The game was challenging, and it just, I mean, I couldn't put it down. I put 50 hours into the game in like a week because I was just like, I just can't get enough of this. Like, the story, the twists and turns, like everything. It just, they did a really good job with it. And then honestly, there's a character cast that like I couldn't decide who I wanted to be in my final party because like everyone was likable. Like, it was really cool. And I'm not usually one for like sort of the relationship mechanics, but the way they did it and tied it into the job system with the archetypes, again, chef's kiss. Absolutely fantastic. Loved it. Next, we have another game that is on the IGN list. They have it a little bit higher. I put it down at 16, and that is Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. And I'm specifically talking about the remake. And so I played the remake very recently, and honestly, like, that game was great. Now, before playing that, I probably would have put OG Paper Mario, like Paper Mario 64 on this list, but Thousand Year Door took everything that Paper Mario 64 did and made it better. And I really liked some of the sort of like new badges that they added in, the new character, all the different characters were great. And I think where this game excels is the writing. Now, you think about Mario, you think about the fact that Mario is like a silent protagonist, and you're not going to have dialogue or anything like that, but the writing around everything like was just fantastic. All the characters had very, very unique, quirky personalities, and like the whole subplot of Princess Peach and the freaking computer, like, that was really funny. Like, I think that the game just like really did a great job with that, and so I really enjoyed that. I thought the Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, it surprised me, and honestly, like, after reflecting, kind of thinking about this, it had to be on this list, and it had to be reasonably high, somewhere in the middle. So I thought 16 was sort of the perfect slot for it. Next is a game that I think a lot of people have not played. I don't think a lot of people have played many games in this franchise. I do think that the second game in this franchise is usually the one that people rant and rave about, but I actually prefer the third one, and that is Shining Force 3. And so this is a Sega Saturn game, so I know a lot of people have not played it. It's also a very expensive Sega Saturn game, but honestly, the story in this game, absolutely fantastic. I think that the fact that we only got in North America one of the sort of stories is really upsetting. We definitely, if we would have gotten all three, I think this game would be higher on a lot of people's lists. But Shining Force 3, it was great from start to finish. I really enjoyed the combat. It has a lot of the very Camelot things where like you're reviving characters in the church and like you're classing characters up and sort of doing all of those different things. And again, like I think like the combat was fantastic. The story was great. The fact that you have sort of like three main characters when you do play all three stories, and you kind of get to see everything and how they all tie in together from each of the different perspectives, I think is really good. And I think for a tactics game, especially one that like isn't really well known, I think it did a lot of things that were very, very unique, and it was very clear that like a lot of games took from this. Also, another thing I just want to point out, the animations for this game are incredible. Okay, so I don't want to gush too much about it. We have a lot of games to talk about still. So next is the pick that I think people are going to expect to be higher up. Now, on the IGN list, they had this game at 9, and I think they meant to choose this version, but they went with Pokemon Gold and Silver. I'm going to go with Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Heart Gold and Soul Silver are like the definitive version of Gold and Silver. Those are definitely the best versions of the game, and it's not even a question. So many quality of life changes. Now, any older Pokemon game is going to be slower paced, and I think that's the biggest knock on those games, but being able to go from Johto to Kanto and have 16 badges, being able to battle Red, being able to do all these things, and then on top of that, having sort of like the Gen 3 and Gen 4 Pokemon introduced, and sort of like adding like a Safari Zone and adding these different things, like that just made it that much better. Plus, they brought in all the Crystal story stuff, so like the Suicune story was there, and they just added so much with Heart Gold, Soul Silver that I think it would just be silly to leave those off the list. Like, and Pokemon as a whole, like it was gonna be on this list. It just, those games are fantastic for me. I absolutely love those games. Number 13, which is a game that I thought was surprisingly left off the IGN list, and that is going to be Lunar Silver Star Story. Now, I have some beef with some of the other Lunar games, especially Dragon Song. That game's bad, but Lunar Silver Star Story is just in my opinion, just like a masterpiece from start to finish. I think that it's the like prototypical RPG story, and just like it's an adventure. The combat system's great, and yeah, the characters, you just really get to feel all the different personalities. It has character cast that you want to love. It has character cast that you want to hate. It has character cast that you kind of like side-eye, characters that you're sort of like, wow, why is that character giving that person another chance? Like, you're just face palming. Like, I think the amount of emotion that the Lunar characters bring out, especially the playable characters, I was just like, it really pulled me in. It also is a working designs translation, so you'll know what I mean when I say it has some things in the dialogue. Okay, so next we have number 12, and now I think this was number 16 on the IGN list, and that was Kingdom Hearts 2. I have another Kingdom Hearts game. I know 2 is the one that everybody has highly regarded, but I actually think Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep is the best game in the series, and I played the PSP version, but I have seen the sort of like remastered definitive version that came out in some of the collections, I believe the 2.5 collection, and I think that version is probably the best version to play. But Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep is just an incredible game. I think having the ability to kind of play as 3 different characters was great. I think sort of the story in itself and seeing how all the different pieces come together with Terra, Ventus, and Aqua was just like mind-blowing to me, especially being in high school and sort of like seeing all these things, being like, whoa, all these different paths and like all of this, especially kind of deviating from what Kingdom Hearts was. I really enjoyed Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. I think also just the fact that like each of the characters had like their own sort of like expertise and sort of You could build the command deck with different things. Like, oh man, Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep is a game that will always be near and dear to me, and I really do think that it edges out Kingdom Hearts 2 for me just a little bit. And the reason it edges out Kingdom Hearts 2 for me is because I don't really care for Roxas, and I really thought that the beginning segment of Kingdom Hearts 2 was a drag. But again, Birth by Sleep slightly edges out Kingdom Hearts 2 for me, and that's just where I'm at. Next is number 11, and honestly, 10 and 11 for me kind of flip-flop. On the IGN list, my number 11 is number 13 on their list, and that's going to be Xenogears. I really thought Xenogears was fantastic. I really do think that Xenogears used to be higher up on this list for me, and then I really started to reflect on Disc 2, and it is a visual novel. But let's not use that as like anything to detract from Xenogears. As a whole, like the first 50, 60 hours of Xenogears when you're playing Disc 1 is just like, you're on the edge of your seat. It throws you in from the beginning. You're learning the combat system. It doesn't really explain everything too much, but like the combat system, the mech system, like, oh my goodness, both of those, like being able to chain all the combos together and sort of like learn the different death blows, that was fantastic. And then being able to kind of utilize those death blows in giant mechs. Like, I have a Weltall figure behind me. Like, Xenogears is just a very, very, very well done game, and that's not even talking about the story. And what I do love is that Xenogears is not afraid to push the envelope with a lot of topics that you wouldn't necessarily find people having conversations about at the dinner table, you know? So I do think that Xenogears deserves a place on this list. I would think about bumping it up a little higher, and that's only because like the next game I think is kind of, I want to say falling out of favor with me a little bit, but I think the more that I see it, the lower on the list it's been dropping down, and that's going to be Legend of Dragoon. I think Legend of Dragoon is a really good game. I do think that like some of Legend of Dragoon's sort of like twists and turns are very telegraphed, which isn't necessarily always a bad thing, but I do think in Legend of Dragoon's case can kind of detract from the story a little bit. But that said, let's not sugarcoat it. Like, this is a fantastic game, and we're talking about top 10 now, so like the things that I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to be very much nitpicking. Now, Legend of Dragoon, I just, where it really, really shines is the gameplay for me. Like, it's the first game that I think kind of really dug into that timing-based mechanic in a way that, like, was satisfying. I think, like, obviously Mario RPG did that, but it wasn't as satisfying as seeing all of the different prompts come up with the squares, with the different colors, with your X or circle, and then hearing your freaking character yell out the move, like doing the attacks and hearing volcano, or doing the different attacks and hearing gust of wind dance. It's just fantastic. I loved it. So I do think with all the things that they do in Legend of Dragoon, the story was very good. I do think obviously the game has some flaws, but overall Legend of Dragoon is definitely a game that I would 100% recommend, 100% go back to, and I think it is deserving of a top 10 spot in this list. Now, again, Xenogears, Legend of Dragoon, call them 10A, 10B if you want to. Like, I think they're both like right there on that cusp of top 10. Now, the next game on the list, and this is a game that I think is it's probably not going to make a lot of people's list because I think there's some other titles that people love in this franchise, but it's going to be, for me, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. This is my favorite Fire Emblem game by far. I do think there are other very good Fire Emblem games, but I think Fire Emblem Path of Radiance really just like, it does everything I want it to do. It is a difficult tactics game. It is a tactics game that has a very good story, very good characters. It has characters you love. It has characters you hate. It has characters that have incredible growth over the course of time. It has like some very interesting twists that you're not expecting. And even though it does kind of like lead into Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn, it still has closure to its story. And I think that is something that's very important, especially with a game that has a direct sequel. And I just think that is super, like, it's a contained story. It's great. Like, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, I don't want to say, I hate using the word like perfect, but for me, it's like almost the perfect tactics game. And yeah, I know IGN didn't have any tactics games on their list, so that's unfortunate. But okay, we're gonna move on. So next is Valkyrie Profile at number 8. I can't believe this game got left off of this list. Valkyrie Profile is an absolute gem. This game has some of the most heart-wrenching stories within it. The combat system is one of the best. The like artwork, the sprite work in this game, second, especially on the PS1 to Breath of Fire 4, in my opinion. Valkyrie Profile, like everything about Valkyrie Profile was just, I picked this game up and I couldn't put it down. Like the fact that all your characters are sort of like assigned to a different face button on the controller, and you can kind of do different combos, and then the meter that fills up, and if you get to the certain chain, you can like do the specials. Oh my God. I absolutely loved that. And again, like it has good difficulty, and it has multiple endings, replayability. Like Valkyrie Profile has everything that I want in RPG. Like it just, oh my goodness. I loved the game. The game was absolutely fantastic, and I definitely think it's a top 10 RPG. Next, we have sort of what is known in the community as the definitive number one. But it's not number one for me, it's number 7, and that's Chrono Trigger. It's funny because over time, Chrono Trigger has definitely gone up for me. I don't have the nostalgia that a lot of people do for Chrono Trigger, but I do think that it is a fantastic game. I replayed it recently, I think 2 years ago, so that I could play Chrono Cross for the first time. And while Chrono Trigger before that, it had been like a fringe top 10 for me. Now it's definitely kind of like solidified itself, especially when we're not talking about sort of the multiple games in one franchise. Like when you cut it to just one game in a franchise, Chrono Trigger is definitely gonna be top 10 for me. I think the thing that kind of makes Chrono Trigger great is the fact that it does have a very good character cast, and the story is fantastic. The fact that you're jumping around, like it does time travel really well, and the combat is a lot of fun. Like with the sort of being able to do like the combined attacks with different people. I think the one thing that sort of like detracts from me with Chrono Trigger is like Chrono as a protagonist isn't my favorite. And I do think that sometimes there are times, like especially like I did for just about everything in Chrono Trigger the last time I played it, and I still felt like I wanted more. And I think part of that is because of the multiple playthroughs and the multiple endings and stuff. But like I'm not somebody that wants to keep replaying a game and getting more endings. So I really thought that like that ended up being kind of a detractor in a sense. Like it's great that it's such a short game, but it leaves me like, man, I really wish I could get like 5 more hours with this game. So again, these are all nitpicks. We're talking about top 5, top 10 RPGs. So it's going to be nitpicks. Number 6 is one of my favorite games of all time, and that is going to be Final Fantasy IX. So yes, Final Fantasy IX is the one that is on here. Final Fantasy IX, I think, is my definitive like Final Fantasy that I wanted to put on here. Final Fantasy Tactics was a very close second. But Final Fantasy IX, I think, just for me, I resonate with Zidane as a character so much that just made me love the game immediately. And yeah, I can't say much more about that in that regard. But I really love the character cast outside of Steiner. And I really love just like getting into a battle in Final Fantasy IX is just like so hype. The buildup is there. I do think that the active time battle can be tweaked a little bit. Like it is a little slow, but I do think that like it was just really good. And I really love the story of Final Fantasy IX. I really do. Like I think the story of Final Fantasy IX just really, really shines. And I do think that, again, the thing that I resonate with probably the most in Final Fantasy IX, more than any other game, is just like all of everything that goes on for Zidane. I really, really resonate with that. And I think that that is something where it's like, oh, I could really feel the character growth, development, and sort of like relate to the characters in a way that I oftentimes can't relate in other games. This is where I feel like I'm gonna get a lot of hate. And it's okay. I'm okay with it. Like I'm ready for it. I'm ready to hear it. And I actually pulled the games off my shelf. So my top 5, I have all the games next to me. I pulled the games off my shelf. So number 5, and this is a game I think that wasn't higher on the IGN list because of accessibility issues, honestly, and that is going to be Lost Odyssey. So this game is again, it's an Xbox 360 game. Like I do think that it's hard for a lot of people to play it. I don't know tons of people that have played it. I had to put this in my top 5. This game is a masterpiece. Like everybody that says this is the Final Fantasy we never got, that we should have gotten, that we never got, like that's what it is. This is the like Lost Odyssey is the game that like if it would have had the Final Fantasy title on it, I think it would be like number 2 or 3 on people's lists of all time. Like, this game is incredible. The systems that are in place, like just inheriting from all the different characters with like the skills from different characters, is absolutely fantastic. The overworld theme is like, all the music in this game is beautiful. Like, and it makes sense because it's Uematsu doing the music, and this is a Sakaguchi game. Like, obviously the Mistwalker, like Mistwalker put this game out. So I think that this game is an absolute masterpiece. And I love the character cast too. Like, it's a very interesting character cast of just like people that have gone through a lot of shit. Like, they've gone through a ton of stuff. And I think one of the most underrated parts of Lost Odyssey is all of the sort of like side stories that you can find over the course of the game. Now, I would recommend like finding all of those because they just add more character depth, and you get to see the characters' paths even more so than you would if you were already playing through the game. Okay, so next, and again, I think I'm going to get a lot of heat for this because I think people are going to say recency bias and all of that, but we're going to go with Octopath Traveler 2. Now, this on the IGN list is number 11. I think that Octopath Traveler 2 specifically is the best game that Square Enix has put out since the merger. I said what I said. I struggled to find a flaw with Octopath Traveler 2. Now, some people can say it's a little grindy. I truly think that that's just depends on how you play. I did not have to grind in Octopath Traveler 2 at all until I fought the secret boss. That was the only time I had to grind. So for me, I don't feel like the game's too grindy. I feel like it really matters on like sort of how you approach the different characters and their different stories. But honestly, Octopath Traveler 2, like, I love every character other than one. All of their stories are incredibly strong, and the changes to the combat system that they made, like, obviously you can sort of like store up BP and do different things, but giving everybody a like their own specific special that they could kind of just like, you know, use when they fill up their meter, and then like on top of that have the different, still maintain the different systems and maintain the break system and everything. I just think the depth of the Octopath Traveler system, on top of still having all the jobs and everything, it just, Octopath Traveler 2, I know a lot of people aren't super high on it, but I am incredibly high on this game. I think that it is well deserving of a top 5 spot. And again, people are going to say recency bias, but like, honestly, I've played a lot of these games in the last 5-10 years. And so like, honestly, I think everything on the list I've played in the last 5 or 10 years. Like, I've played other ones before. I've played some of them prior to the last 5 or 10 years as well. But like, a lot of this list I've played in the last 5 or 10 years. So like, again, recency bias isn't really a thing for me. It's not nostalgia talking. I really do think that this game is just a masterpiece. Okay, next, this is a really hard sort of distinction between these three, because I think there are 3 games these 3 can bounce back and forth at any point. For number 3, I decided to go with Wild Arms 2. Now, I really love this game. The first one is very good. The second one takes everything that the first one does and makes it so much better. The story is better in my opinion. The characters are better in my opinion. The different puzzles that it has is better in my opinion. And just like the biggest thing about Wild Arms 2 for me is just like the fact that you can sort of build your characters in, like, you have multiple systems to build your characters, and then you have like the FP system. You can start off and you just kind of like, it just all kind of gels and makes sense. And sort of like as you progress in the game, the different progressions that you're going through and being able to kind of do different things, learn different abilities, have the summons tied to things, like Wild Arms 2, I think from a combat system just clicked for me so well. And I really enjoyed it. I also think it has some quality of life that isn't usually in games, in the sort of like cancel system for the random encounters. Like, I think that that's great too. Like the different, like, and you're in the overworld, you can kind of cancel encounters based on the different exclamation points that you see. I think Wild Arms 2, again, just like everything about it was fantastic. And I think the highlight of Wild Arms 2 is the music. The music, the opening. If you haven't already, go watch the opening to Wild Arms 2. Watch the first opening, and then watch the Disc 2 opening. You will be wowed. 100%. Or you don't really like musical openings, like anime musical openings. That's my thought. Okay. These next 2 are a huge toss-up. and I think I'm going with my gut here. So number 2 is going to be the best game, in my opinion, in the best long-running series, and that is going to be Trails to Azure. Now, you can see I have both the PSP copy and the Switch copy. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about the Trails games. Everybody needs to go play Trails. But with that, I think a lot of people sort of, and you can see that Trails in the Sky, and maybe they meant the Sky first chapter and second chapter, kind of like what I was talking about with Golden Sun. But even still, I thought Trails to Azure it still is to me the best game in the series. I am caught up with everything that's modern, everything that's translated. And yeah, I think Trails to Azure is just such a good game. Like, the fact that it has so many different plot twists and just like, yeah, that in itself is great. But just kind of how it builds on the systems. And that's kind of one of the thing I really want to talk about, because I don't want to get into story spoilers, but the way that it builds on the court system with the basically the master courts. I can't remember exactly what they call them in that game. I think it's master courts in that game, but just being able to kind of do that and level those up and then like use those to learn different abilities. It's funny. A bunch of friends and I always call it rock math. Cause like you're using the different courts that you have to learn different abilities to then sort of like get even higher level magic and stuff like that. It's so good. And I think that this character cast is the best Trails character cast. Like, I actually really, every character outside of like 1 or 2 in this cast, I absolutely love. So I do think that the Trails to Azure cast, the combat, sort of the things that they do, lays a lot of the groundwork for some of the advancements in the systems as well, in future games, like in the Cold Steel games and stuff like that. But I think Trails to Azure, just like from start to finish, I was hooked. Yeah, I really do think that Trails to Azure is the best game in that series. And so people are probably saying, KJ, what's your number 1? And this is a game that was surprisingly low, in my opinion, on the IGN list, and that is going to be Suikoden 2. Now, this game is, and you can see it's like in plastic and everything. I also have the remaster or the remaster on my shelf. I just forgot to grab it. But Suikoden 2, masterpiece. Like, I don't need to say much about it. Like, if I'm being honest, I have never played a game that has sort of like had me hooked as much as Suikoden 2 did, had me hating a character as much as Suikoden 2 did, had me kind of like step back and really think about it and be like, oh wow, like there were just so many things. And I think the thing that I love about Suikoden 2 is being able to collect all the characters as well. Like, that's the Suikoden series in general, but just being able to collect all the characters, going through like getting all the 108 stars and then seeing like the different endings that they have, and just kind of being able to experiment with the different characters that you can kind of like do different things. You can make like unite attacks, and you can do all these different things. You can put different runes on people to kind of go through and sort of like have them doing different magic and stuff like that. And honestly, like, it's funny because Suikoden 2 and Suikoden 5, if we could duplicate rather, Suikoden 2 and Suikoden 5 would be on this list, but there's no way I could put Suikoden 5 over Suikoden 2, because I do think Suikoden 2 edges it out just slightly. So yeah, that is where I'm at. Suikoden 2 would be number 1 for me for sure. But that is my list. So I'm gonna flash the list on the screen so you can see it. And yeah, that's gonna be the list. So thank you all for tuning in. Please feel free to leave all the messages in the comments below about how bad you think my list is, or if you agree with me, or whatever, you think something's too high. Some honorable mentions I had were actually stuff that were on the IGN list. Stuff like Bravely Default, Live Alive. Yeah, I think those would probably be sort of my 2 honorable mentions. I haven't played a Yakuza game yet. I have no interest in Ni no Kuni. Breath of Fire 3 didn't really hit that well for me. So yeah, overall, that's my list, like I said. And yeah, I really appreciate y'all tuning in. Big shout out also to my homie P-Stone, who is the editor for this video and is going to be editing my YouTube videos. Really, really appreciate him doing that. Go check him out. And yeah, show him some love. So I appreciate the hell out of y'all, but I'm going to get out of here. Thank you, everybody. Take it easy. Peace.